Morning, everybody. Hope you had a nice weekend. Special shout out to our Vincentians in Perryville, Missouri, and also I got a special hello to Jack. Hey, we're praying for you, buddy. Just get better. Okay, so what's he doing in a golf cart? Well, let me tell you. Every weekend during the summer, I drive over to Grand Beach, Michigan, which is on the southern tip of Lake Michigan. And I come over to celebrate a special Mass. I mean, it's unique. The cart. This Mass is a golf cart Mass. So everybody comes to the golf course, and outside of the clubhouse, there's a beautiful area where all the carts park around the table where we celebrate Eucharist. We celebrate Mass. And this summer was a little different. We needed special permission because of the pandemic. So we're very grateful to Bishop Bradley from Kalamazoo and also the council here at Grand Beach for allowing us to do this. But we're doing it correctly. Everybody wears a mask. We park the carts 6 feet away so that we control the social distancing. But it's really a beautiful sight. I mean, to me, it's inspiring to see. There might be 50 carts that come and they're there because they want to celebrate the presence of God in the bread and the wine. And so I'm inspired by that. And I love coming over doing it. This week I've been thinking about inspiration and how are people inspired and who inspires them. You know, a lot of times I think it happens from somebody in the family. I want to tell you about Jerry. Jerry idolized his older brother. His older brother could do no wrong. Everything his brother did was right. And Jerry had to go get his license. You know, he went to the facility and he took the written test, and then the instructor said, hey, I got to take you out and see how you drive. So Jerry got in the car and he drove, and the instructor was there, and it wasn't far from the facility, and Jerry came upon the stoplight, and it was red, and he went right through it. He never stopped at all, and the instructor says, hey, son, don't you know the stoplight, and it's red, you're supposed to stop. Why didn't you stop? He looked at the instructor and he said, sir, my brother never stops at a red light. Well, that didn't impress or inspire the instructor. He told him, he said, son, turn this car around, go back. Go back to the facility. You need to study more how to drive safely. So Jerry turned the car around and he heads back to the facility and he comes to the stoplight again. And this time it's green. And he stops. Looks over at the instructor, and the instructor said, son, the light's green. You know, why didn't you go? He just kind of stared at the instructor and he said, sir, you never know when my brother might show up. But, you know, besides family, I think people sometimes are inspired by famous people, or maybe it's a teacher, or maybe it's a war hero, or maybe somebody like Pope Francis. Or how about a saint like Vincent de Paul, or somebody who we're going to honor tomorrow. And it's a special celebration. For tomorrow, we will celebrate, you know, the feast honoring the first Native American saint. Pope Benedict XVI canonized Gatari Tekawada. That's the Indian pronunciation of her name. First name is Gatari. She's got a really hard life that she lived. As a Native American, grew up in New York, lost her mom and dad when she was 4 years old to an epidemic of smallpox. But I'll tell you who she was inspired by. The Jesuit missionaries who showed interest than the Native Americans. To the point where they took care of her, they taught her about God, baptized her. And she just was so moved and inspired by them because they weren't family, they weren't from any Indian tribe. She's inspired by them. How about Vincent de Paul? Oh my God. How many millions did he inspire and still inspires? You know, he founded the Vincentians, Priest and Brothers. And you can bet so many of us are inspired by Vincent de Paul. He also, with St. Louis, founded a group of nuns called the Daughters of Charity. How many of them you think were inspired? And then the Ladies of Charity, a group of lay women who serve the poor all over the world to this day. And how about some of you, inspired by Vincent to join the St. Vincent de Paul Society to help the poor? Wow. You know, every time we get together, I always have a shout out to the Vincentians in Perryville, Missouri. And the reason I do that, it's my way of paying tribute to the Vincentians who inspired us. And that's my way of paying tribute to them. You know, when I was first ordained as a Vincentian priest, I was sent to Tucson, Arizona. And I was inspired by a priest that I lived with. Ended up becoming a good friend. But he inspired me because he taught me about a virtue I didn't even think of. As a matter of fact, it may be a forgotten or unknown virtue. Father Jack Shine taught me the value of hospitality, a virtue that makes everybody feel welcome. Everybody's important. I'll never forget him for that. After I left Tucson, I was stationed at DePaul University in Chicago. And I was inspired by another Father Jack. His name was Father Jack Battle. Now, I was inspired by him not because he taught me how to play gin successfully. I mean, he was a gin master. And we used to play gin in his room every night after dinner. And he taught me a lot. But I was inspired by him because of his simplicity. I mean, this guy was one of the most popular professors at DePaul University. And as I sat there each night, I looked and he'd only have a couple books on his bookshelf. Finally, I asked him about it. I said, "Hey, Jack, how come you don't have many books as the professor that you are?" He said, "Bob, let me tell you, I am honored and privileged to teach in one of the finest universities in the world. So obviously they would have one of the finest libraries." So that's where I get my books. I don't need my community to buy and spend money on books. That simplicity is really beautiful. But while I was at DePaul, I was really inspired by the Vincent de Paul of Chicago. I mean, this guy lived at St. Vincent de Paul Parish, which is on the campus of DePaul University. But this guy would get up early in the morning and until late at night serve the poor. Brother Leo was the inspiration of being Vincent in Chicago. I mean, he fed and clothed the homeless, gave his whole life to it. How about you? I mean, I'm sure you've been inspired by maybe a teacher, maybe a friend, maybe somebody in your family. Tell you what, this week, I'd like you to write a thank you card to somebody who inspired you. And not an email and not a text, but a card. Send it to them. And let them know how they inspired you and you're grateful. You know, at the end of our time together, we always pray for miracles. The prayer written by John Gabriel Perbor. And we have need of a lot of miracles, especially in need of healing. But today, I'd like you to also say the prayer in gratitude to God for all those who have inspired us. So how about we say the prayer together? I don't know if you have your card. Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. May my hands be your hands, may my tongue be your tongue. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you. Above all, transform my soul and all its powers, that my memory, my will, and my affections may be the memory, the will, and the affections of you. I pray you to destroy in me all that is not of you. Grant that I may live but in you, and by you, and for you, and that I may truly say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. Hey, I'm glad you were with us today. Hope to see you next week. Be safe, and God bless.